everybody. Welcome back to Sell More Academy, the mastermind for more sales. My name is Ben McGary, and for the last 2 decades, I've spent nearly every day trying to figure out how to sell more stuff. I've been in the trenches selling my own products and services for years. I built teams, companies, and systems that sell from Main Street, small town USA, all the way to Wall Street. And I've been fortunate enough to coach and consult for countless others worldwide, all in totaling over $150 million in sales. During that time, it has become painfully obvious that the marketplace is and always will be loud and noisy. These days, content creators and social media gurus promote clickbait tactics and short-sighted strategies that often cause more harm than good. It seems like everyone has all the tools at their fingertips, but nobody really knows how to put it all together. Plus, what worked yesterday might not work today and will almost certainly be different again by tomorrow. And that's precisely why I started Sell More Academy, to build a community and a set of resources to help you stay ahead of the curve, to help cut through the noise and make sense of your next best step. At Sell More Academy, we focus on what we consider to be the 5 pillars of modern business success: AI, branding, marketing, sales, and systems. We bring this to you through a powerful combination of a vibrant mastermind community where you can connect with and learn from fellow high achievers and experts in the field, live masterclasses just like this one, where we dive deep into the strategies and tactics covering each pillar, one per day, a curated collection of resources, including free tools that we're building to help you sell more effectively, and our Sell More directory, connecting you with pre-vetted providers and solutions that you'll need whenever it's time to either outsource or just find the right tool for the job. Our goal here is to provide you with everything that you need to not only stay informed and competitive, but to sell a lot more stuff. And that brings us to today's masterclass, where we're going to jump into a topic that costs entrepreneurs literally millions of dollars per year in wasted effort and lost opportunity: trade shows. I'm so unbelievably excited to introduce today's special guest, David Babcock. David is a master of attention, not just any attention. He is a strategist who spent his career at the intersection of storytelling, human psychology, and conversion. He's not just a marketer. He's an inventor, a magazine editor, an experiential powerhouse who understands what it means to really make people stop, listen, and then take action. He looks at crowded, noisy trade show floors and sees a laboratory. While everyone else is handing out cheap pens or scanning badges, David is running around and running a system, a repeatable, predictable process that turns a simple booth into the center of gravity for the entire trade show world. He uses characters and genuine human connection to stop traffic, qualify prospects in seconds, and then physically hand walk warm leads over to his clients' sales teams. His client list, from enterprise giants like Chevron and Logitech to specialized B2B companies, is a true testament to the fact that this system works anywhere in any industry. He doesn't just generate brand awareness. He creates and channels demand in real time and shows companies how to measure the ROI for an event far beyond what just a simple scan of a badge could do. Today, he's here to help pull back some of the curtain on that system. He's going to show us exactly why, or tell us why most trade show marketing fails, and how we can build a machine that turns every event that we do into a massive win for our business. So with that, I would officially like to welcome to Sell More Academy, David Babcock. David, thank you so much for being here. I see your schedule. I see all of the requests that you have. I see in your sites. I have to imagine that you're one of the most in-demand people that we have met. And so I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with me today and help educate our community about trade shows. Is there anything that I missed? Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and the things I left out?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Ben. I listened to it from you and it sounds amazing, but it's but it's all true too. So, it sounded pretty good, but people don't usually reflect me back at me. I appreciate that. Is there anything I missed? Wow, I don't know for sure how to answer that because you really did nail it. I have an enormous grab bag of experience. Let's just, quickly put it that way. But it really does work well for the things that I've chosen to do. And one of those is trade show marketing. And trade show marketing is really, really where B2B and rubber meets the road kind of thing. People are there to sell and people are there to buy, right? And that's all there is. Yeah, that's really all there is. They might not be there to buy your particular thing, but we're going to find that out.
That. So for those on the call that aren't familiar with what you do, before we jump into my questions,
Okay.
I want to go ahead and give a little
Okay.
context into that part.
Sure. Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try and put it together as succinctly as possible.
Sure.
I am a marketer. I was a creative director and a marketing director for a consumer packaged goods company for the past 15 years. Up until about this past November, I actually did that, a lot of remote for those people and started, in office, did product development, sales, apps for the salespeople, trade shows for for people where I didn't appear there. I just set the trade show, all the booth stuff, buy the booth, buy the, all the background stuff, the machinations of that kind of thing. And then for about 10 years before that, I was a magazine editor. So I'm a writer, an editor, a lot of stuff. And then before that, I actually had quite a bit of acting experience. And so living in Kansas City I'm based. It's where I live most of the time. Not today. I'm in Florida today. So in Kansas City, even if you're the best guy in Kansas City, you might only work a few times a year. But I'd be working a few times a year. So I've been in quite a few films and a bunch of TV commercials, some TV shows, all this kind of stuff. And so at some point, I had the acting, I had the marketing, right? And I had trade show experience and all, I was building all these things. And so about 15 years ago, people started to say, you know what, you look a little bit like Will Ferrell, right? And so I'd get that and I'd be like, well, thanks, but no thanks. That's not really a compliment, right? And so my wife one day just said, you know what, I heard on the radio, one of the radio stations is having a Halloween costume party, but the costume or the win is a trip to New York City, right? The prize would be a trip to New York City, all kind of really looked like a great trip. And she said, you be Anchorman, Ron Burgundy, and I'll be Veronica Corningstone. And I said, what? That sounds like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. What am I, 12? I don't do Halloween costumes, right? And so she got very disappointed in me because typically I'm willing to try just about anything, right? My experience would show that I'm just all over the place. I like to try everything I can. And so a few weeks went by and finally she said, well, what happened to that spontaneous man I married, right? And so then I'm like, oh my God, now I'm either on the couch or I'm getting papers from the lawyer, right? I have to do this now, right? So reluctantly, I went to the thrift store, bought a jacket, spray painted it red because they did not have a red jacket. Smells like pure gasoline, let me tell you. And then I went to Halloween store, got a really dumb wig, whatever wig they had, and sort of a crazy Fu Manchu mustache, not too different from what you got on right there.
It's all fake.
Yeah, okay. But so when I go in the bathroom and I put the wig on and put the mustache, I looked and I'm like, oh my God, I look like Ron Burgundy. I really do see it now, right? And so anyway, I started getting excited. Well, maybe, I can use my marketing background, my acting background. Maybe I can go to this thing and we can win this trip. Because quite frankly, that was sort of, the last real big depression, 2008 to 2010, whatever. And I had a fairly huge business. I owned my own magazine at that point. We had over 100,000 circulation. I mean, it was a
Wow.
big deal, right? Lost it, right? Everything sort of crashed, right? So times were bad, right?
Yeah.
Things were, and so a trip to New York City sounded fantastic, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so we got down there. I put it together. I worked the room. I just did everything I could think of to be Ron Burgundy in this room. And at the end of the night, uh, lo and behold, the winner was chosen by applause. And I had met everybody in that room. I had sort of had fun with everybody, made everybody laugh. It was a great time. So
Okay.
won that trip. So the next few years, honestly, we just went Halloween, Friday night, Halloween, Saturday night. Who's giving away the most money?
Okay.
Right? How can we win this? And I went in there and just made it happen. And we would be either first or second every night for the next couple of years. And
Wow.
finally, yeah. So, and I mean, $1,000, $500. These, there's pretty good prizes out there on Halloween, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to this bar. It was an old, Irish pub kind of thing. And I remember walking out of the thing at 2 o'clock in the morning carrying a big TV that I had won, right? And the manager says, "Will you host New Year's Eve for us as Ron Burgundy? All you got to do is do what you did tonight. Just make everybody happy and laugh and take pictures and introduce the band. I mean, whatever." And so I, lo and behold, long story short, I made a deal with him, and for some. Well, here's what happened. He said, I'll give you the best table in the house,
There you go.
a bar tab, anything you want to drink." And I was like, "Well, what else you got?" And he's like,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Well, he started smelling blood in the water. I think he's like, I might get this guy, right?" And
Yeah.
I said, "Well, what else you got?" He goes, "Oh, you can invite all your friends. They can be on your bar tab. They can be at your table. It'll be great. You have the biggest party ever." No, nothing out of pocket. And I was like, "Well, that sounds pretty good, but I don't like my friends that much, right?" And so he goes, "Okay, I'll give you all that and $1,200 cash." And I said, "Okay, yes, we'll do that." So that was how it went from a Halloween costume to a professional gig, if you will.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden I'm a celebrity impersonator too, right? But I have this marketing and acting and all these things right in my head. So I thought, well, the first thing I need to do is gather up all these photos that I've gotten along the way of all these costume contests, because there's a lot of pro shots of me out there winning the thing and whatever. Social media, websites, boom, boom, booms. Don't corner the domains, got all the social media, whatever, which, some of my social media works really great. Some of it doesn't, but I've got a bunch of different stuff going on, just like anybody, I suppose, that's in business. Some of it works great, some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, I built it all, and right away I started getting messages from people. "Hey, my husband's the prosecuting attorney in Omaha, and his birthday, and he loves Anchorman. Will you come?" Right? And so started doing that kind of thing. And then I started getting some trade show work, right? So, and then at trade shows, I can do the same thing that I did. And I'm not, this is where I got more experience at trade shows. And I'm not saying that that's the only thing I know about trade shows, because I know a lot about trade shows, right? But when I started doing trade shows as the character, I can do the same thing I do at parties. People want to talk to you. They want to come up and take a picture. They want to do a video or laugh or just tell them a story or whatever, and tell you a story about something that when they first saw it or whatever it is. So it's an immediate magical icebreaker. I mean, it's shocking how good that can be. You were telling me about your hot dog thing a while back, and I can imagine, it's
Yeah.
probably, but so many people know and relate to the Anchorman Ron Burgundy character or the Ricky Bobby character, which I launched shortly after that, because some trade shows would choose one, some would choose the other. And so what happens is, though, with my marketing brain, right, I'm working for a client, and immediately there's a person in front of me who's there to buy something, probably, right? They might not, they might have their CRM already figured out if I'm selling for if I'm with a CRM company. They might already have a manufacturer if I'm with a manufacturer, this kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to figure out what they're doing. And so it really, what I do in that moment, or a pre-show, there's some prep that goes into this, right? I try and figure out what the client's doing, and they're very vague about what they're doing. People just don't really seem to understand trade shows very well, even though they're spending 50 or 100 or 500 grand to be at this show. And I'll be in Orlando here at the end of next week, or early the next week, I guess, for 3 days at a show in a 50-foot by 50-foot booth with a massive company, software company. And they have spent, I'm guessing, somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 just to be sitting in that spot.
Wow.
Right? So how in the world are you going to get ROI on that? Right? Well, they're still hiring me, right? That's one of the things I should say. But anyway, so what I talk to with these clients ahead of time is like, who is your target? When I ask this person what they're doing at the show or whatever the strategy question that I figure out, and I'll figure it out really in the first half hour. I'll have some information, but in the first half hour, I'll figure out what's going on and what the right question is and what the right joke to attach to that is. And then I get the first few people to answer correctly, or I know what they're saying and their jargon in their industry, because this works in any industry. I mean, it's shocking. It doesn't matter what industry it is. I'm just that guy in the middle that is going to be inviting these people to talk, stopping them for long enough to find out what they're doing at the show, or even maybe what industry they're in, or what, oh yeah, I'm a roofing contractor. I go, well, how many crews are you running right now? So my roofing software guy, anywhere between 2 to 10 crews that's the niche that I need to get for my software, right? So there's a few details on down the line that you figure out. And so I get them and I just try and figure them out. And even if it's close, or I think it could lead to a conversation that might be beneficial to my client, I'll like, well, hey, Joe, whoever my client is, come here, take this picture, right? So I invite them into the warm little huddle, the funny huddle that's already going on, right? And I'm turning it from comedy to friendship to business. And so they come over, and then now they're involved because they're taking the picture. Now they've been invited into the tight group here. Yeah. And then I'm like, let's see the picture, right? So then now all of a sudden we're really tight. It's the three of us, or more if there's more people in the photo, right? And the three of us. And typically you can determine who the boss is in the group. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 people, but one of them is the manager or the owner, And so you figure that out right there too, and you're talking or whatever, and like, hey, and then I immediately tell my photographer or my client, I said, guess what? He's a roofing guy, and he's running 10 crews out of Orlando. Can you believe? I mean, hey, you guys ought to talk. You guys should, get your heads together here, because I tell you what, I think you got something here, right? And that's all I have to do.
Yeah.
All right. And so that puts this guy, it turns him, he's a warm, happy, funny, laughing. He's having a great time. Now he's talking to somebody about me to some degree. And now they're friends because they're talking about me. Isn't this great? Whatever, and that kind of stuff. And then that, client converts it into just those two. And then I'm like Homer Simpson into the bushes, right?
Yeah.
I'm like out, and then I'm over here. Here's another one coming, right? Start talking to these people. And I like trade shows, honestly, that have the first name really big on the badge, because I can go, Joe, Dave, come here, Dave, what the heck,
Yeah.
And then I'll, that kind of thing. But it really turns it from somebody that's just walking by. Maybe they don't know they need this guy. Maybe they already think they don't need this guy. It doesn't matter. But I'm a guy I've got nothing. I'm not pushing anything, right? I'm just a happy guy there to have fun, take pictures. So they'll step into it, and then it's up to me to figure out what's going on.
I love that. I think honestly, one of my favorite things that you just said there was warm and happy. And that's probably the hardest part of a trade show in my experience, is that a lot of people are warm, but they're not necessarily in a great mood because they've been pitched and pitched and pitched, and so their sales
Right.
resistance is through the roof.
Hmm.
And I just
Exactly.
imagine you coming in, you're having something that is not a sales conversation. So why would they have sales resistance? Yeah,
Exactly.
it's beautiful. I love it.
Hmm.
I do. Before we go any further, I'm curious, based on what you said at the very beginning, should we have your wife on to talk about sales? Because it sounds like she sold you on this.
Well, she is an amazing partner, I tell you, and that's just something that you need to figure out if you're out there looking for a partner. Find somebody who compliments you, in your thing, because she's a stylist. She cuts hair, right? Makeup artist kind of thing, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so she raised her daughters. We've been married a little over, I don't know, since this all started, right? So before that, but she has two daughters and a son from a previous marriage,
Okay.
and one of them was like the top model from the age of 4 up until 16 or something in Kansas City, like just did work so much. And the other one was a very talented singer who went off and has a career as singer-songwriter on her own. So she's sort of been this Hollywood mom forever. And so I kind of became the next project then, right?
Yeah.
And
Listen to
so,
her.
yeah, exactly. So I definitely listened to her for
Man,
sure.
that's great. All right. Well, I got a couple of questions I want to dive into so we can
Okay.
understand a little bit more. Thank you for telling us that. That was incredible, actually. The just the approach and the way that you think about it and go about it.
Hmm.
I've been to a lot of trade shows and or I thought I have until I met you, but um, I've been to a lot of trade shows and some of the things that you just mentioned are very, very real. Um, I don't know, limitations or boundaries that feel like they're there
Right.
as when you're in the booth or trying to get people to come by the booth, everybody is there. I agree to either find, to buy something in some way or find some information. And like, it's so wild when they won't stop and talk. And it's all
Yeah.
that. It's because,
Hmm.
in my mind, I think it's because they do want what you have to offer, but they're scared to get sold. And so I
Yeah.
love the idea of you stepping in there. If anybody that's here live has questions, go ahead, throw those in the chat. I'll ask them as I go along. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in here. So
Okay.
I'm you've already talked about your journey and kind of how you ended up there. Let's talk a little bit about, you don't have to get into the specifics because I understand some of your clients probably wouldn't want that, but could you talk about how you've seen certain trade shows fail or
Mhm.
have heard them talk about failure and then you were able to step in and either advise on it or just actually play the character, be part of it? Can you kind of talk about what does it look like for failure to success at a trade show?
Well, I have a good example, and it's very recent. I started. I got a client that had seen me somewhere, but it was called Win the, and I don't do just construction and trade show stuff. I mean construction and roofing stuff, but I got into this thread of shows, and it's because one will lead to the next, and somebody will see me and they'll hire me for their next show, right? Because they saw it. So what happened was I was in Win the Storm in Dallas, and it's about, storm recovery kind of stuff, roofing and different things. And so my client there had seen me at a different show at some point. And so he hired me for that. And it's on one of my websites now, or Ricky Bobby website, I think. And he said, you 10x'd my expectation. So he hired me for his next show, right? Of course, because I get a lot of repeat business. And, and so he hired me for the next show. Well, the next show was like I don't know, a while later, but it was in Oklahoma City and it was called RoofCon. So it was very much more specific about roofs. And so I was with him there as well. He kind of said something the same line. It's filled up my seminar because he's doing a seminar for his software or whatever. And so he was great with it, right? But what happens is I sort of suck all the air out of the room, or like you said earlier, the gravity. The gravity is where I'm at. And I don't say that just to brag. That's kind of what happens because the people next to me at shows have told me within the first hour, I'm hiring you for my next show, right? Later in the day, somebody next to me, they were doing nothing at this booth, a little table, and they had the booth set up all wrong, and they weren't. they weren't very approachable. They just sat at this table and had pens or whatever, like you said. And so, but they're next door to me, so it was kind of a down, slow time. I went and talked to them, and they said, "You know what? I've been keeping track of you." And I said, "What was that?" She said, I have 31 times that you were able to stop somebody to take a photo that turned into a real conversation with your client over there." So she ended up booking me as well. Okay. So, and that was, I don't remember what show that was, but because honestly, after a couple of hundred of them,
Yeah.
they tend to blur together. But at this one I was talking about in RoofCon in Oklahoma City, where I had my client, I was the second time I had worked for him. The gravity was just on me, right? Nobody was getting they by the time they're done with my booth, they're basically exhausted because we have gotten everything we can out of them, really, right?
Yeah.
And they don't tend to not see anybody across from me or next to me because they're seeing me, right? And I can catch an eye from somebody, 50 yards away,
Sure. Yeah.
30 yards away. They're looking like, what? Look down there. I think that, right? Because I got the burgundy suit, or I got the Ricky Bobby racing jacket,
Yeah.
or outfit. And so I turn this attention. Even when I'm sitting there talking to somebody, I'm scanning the room, looking for eyes that might see me. And as soon as they see me, I'll wink at them or do something. I mean, it's a machine that I am able to do. But I get all these people that are coming in. And so at the RoofCon, the people across from me got zip, right? The people next to us got zip, but the people across and down one also got zip. But I could see how they sort of had their booth set up wrong again. They got stuff pushed up front. There's no real room for anybody to enter their space, kind of, and their messaging was kind of off, I thought. And so I went over there and talked to them at some point a little bit. And they said, "I see what's going on over there, and we need to talk about getting you at our next show." And I said, "Oh, that's no problem, right?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, just since I'm here and I'm consulting for free right now, like you need to have, a little bit better messaging up here. You can get rid of these things, this big thing here, push it back, maybe that big backdrop. If you just had your logo up higher instead of the whole thing, people could see it. We could get it in some photos in the background because when people hashtag, and then there's also on top of all that, there's strategies of how to get the social media really activated, get your logo in the back of every picture, get the hashtags to happen, that kind of stuff, which in their industry, they're in an industry probably close to what you need their friends, right? You need their business associates, you need their channel. So there's a lot of strategies there. So anyway, but they hired me for their next show, and it was in Las Vegas, and it was called IRE, and it was maybe a month ago or something. And they hired me for 2 days. A lot of shows, it's 2 or 3 days, depending on the show, and some of them are longer days than others. But so they hired me for 2 days. Literally, late in the day, in the first day, I heard it was a husband and wife and another salesperson type situation of the people in the booth. And the husband was the owner, basically. He had developed this software, and he was not necessarily a salesperson. The other guy was a salesperson. I don't think the wife was exactly a salesperson, but I could see that they needed me, right? And they needed some strategy and some tactics. And so anyway, by the time we got to their show in Vegas, they had changed up their messaging somewhat, the way I suggested, and different things. And by late in the day of day one of two, they were talking to each other like, we're going to have to hire some customer service people or another onboarding person or this kind of
Wow.
stuff. And I was like, well, why are you going to have to do that? What's the deal? Well, because you've already filled the pipeline for a year. There's no way as we are that you need to do anything more. So even tomorrow, you just need to kind of phone it in, whatever. We don't need anything more from you. And I don't think I've ever heard that exact thing from anyone before,
Yeah.
but that can happen, right? And that's just, you know, it's kind of unbelievable. It sounds unbelievable when I say it to people. I think they don't really understand what can happen when I put the machine in motion, right? I'm going to make it happen for you. And I'll go to another one. I've got a couple of examples, but I'll talk about all the gravity being pulled my direction, right?
Yeah.
I was with Chevron. Now, they're a big company, they pay well. You know, I was in this 10 by 10 booth, and they really don't need me to pull in business, right? I mean, they're a Fortune 50 company or 10 company, who knows what they are,
Yeah.
right? So, but they've had me do, I think, 12 shows so far, right?
Wow.
And so I was at this show, and across from us, directly across, was Valvoline, which is a competitor oil company, right? And they had the 20-foot by probably at least 40-foot booth, which is a fairly large booth. They had been a sponsor of the thing. They got the big thing hanging from the ceiling. Their messaging. They had a couple of big virtual reality racing games over there that I kind of wanted to play, honestly, but I didn't, and all this kind of stuff. And so we were there for 3 days. And the second day, Doug, my marketing guy from Chevron, he came over and goes, hey, 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 that's the president of Valvoline that just walked into that booth over there. And I look, which one? I look and I'm like, okay, well, gauntlet thrown down, challenge accepted. Let's go. Right. And so we worked it hard, and we were a 10 by 10, like I said, with just a little bit of messaging. And they were this massive elephant in the room, right? Sponsor of the show, all but. And so people would come around this corner or down this aisle, and they would see me. It was a Ricky Bobby character. Okay. And they would see it, and they would come right to me. And I literally believe that nobody except for pre-arranged business meetings went to their booth over there the entire time. I mean, I never saw anybody play those games. Right. And I'm on the show. I'm on the floor, pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
Never saw, it was a very low attended booth over there. But however, we had people all the time, right? At the end of the third day, the president of Valvoline walked across the aisle into the Chevron booth, looked at me, and he goes, dude, you killed us. And then he shook my hand, and then he said, can I get a picture? And I was like, yeah, step right over here by the Chevron logo, right? Yeah, like, sure, come on over. This is what we've been going for, right? And he's like, oh, yeah. And then of course, Doug, my marketing guy, he comes in and like, oh, that's funny. And they're like, well, why don't you go over there in the aisle? Just don't go in their booth and do it, but just go down the aisle a little ways, whatever the generic background. And so we did that. But that's how literally talk about taking the gravity. And I am the gravity. That's like David and Goliath, right? And so that will happen. There's another time, real quick, I'll try and get to it. There was another time it was called ASD show. And I think it's all wholesale products. So it's a lot of little cheap stuff and a lot of wholesale stuff that a lot of Amazon guys, you see a lot of these guys that run even Amazon sort of programs. Hey, we'll build you an Amazon store for yourself. This kind of stuff. I saw those guys there, and I'm always looking at business ideas and stuff. So I saw those guys and all kinds of people, but people from retail stores come there to get contracts for wholesale stuff so that they can sell it. And my client got the worst booth in the place. And in Las Vegas, it's the West. It's the South Hall, the lower level, all the way. He had the last booth all the way to the back, right? Guess what? Because he signed up late. So that's rule number one. Don't sign up late for the trade show. Rule number two, get a decent space. Go ahead and pay for it. So hopefully at an intersection of one of the major walkways. Right. And then, of course, hire me so that I can be working that whole walkway and you can phone it in the rest of the time for the rest of the year, honestly. So, well, no, you have to follow up. Just think about the follow up. So, hey, Ricky Bobby told me to follow up and, see how you were, oh my God. So anyway, this guy signed up late. He was clear at the worst booth. huge show. So he's basically absolutely invisible, absolutely invisible, all the way to the back. Guess what? His materials didn't show up, so he had no messaging other than the little thing they put on your booth saying,
A little printout.
whatever. Yeah, the booth number, 700 and,
Yeah.
whatever. And, but he did have a little box of samples
Okay.
that he put out on this table. And I'm like, oh boy, right, here's the deal. But one of the things I also do for shows is I get there early and I walk through the crowd sort of while they're getting their badges, builds the buzz. Like, oh my gosh, did you see this guy? He's Ricky Bobby or Ron Burgundy or whatever, this kind of stuff. So it kind of builds a buzz. People are like, what? I might think about finding that guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
And then I get into the trade show before it opens because I have a badge, I'm an exhibitor badge. And so I'm roaming the aisles, going down through the aisles, just so I can see the people that are already there and kind of bump in on some of their big meetings that they're having or people setting up late and I'm giving them a hard time, this kind of stuff. What that also builds buzz because later, I can't tell you how many times people have said, oh my gosh, I was at this other booth and they're all talking about you. I had to come find you. They told me where you were down this way and I had to come find you, right? Now, how in the world, you tell me one other situation where another booth, potential competitor, or somebody else in some other business, maybe not, is sending their people to you.
Yeah.
There's one way it happens, and I can show it how it works. Anyway, so I'm going down through the booths. This is all my strategy, right? It's just to build the buzz, get enough people to see me, so there's somebody's talking about it. And then so anyway, I finally got back down to this guy's booth at the ASD show in Vegas. Last booth, lower level, clear in the back. Big white, 10 foot. I think it might have been 20 actually. Now that I think about it, so 20 foot, but white, right, generic.
Yeah.
And so I got back there. I'm like, well, what's going on here? So he told me the problems, and I said, well, we got what we got. We'll do what we can do, right? Well, within the hour, this middle-aged woman and a middle-aged man showed up and they said, oh my gosh, Ricky, we have to get a picture. We saw you halfway across over here. We tried to follow you and we lost you, but we finally found you. Oh my gosh, can we get a picture? Right? And I said, you bet. Absolutely. Let's do this, and like, what are you guys doing at the show? Well, we're buyers for this retail grocery store chain, right? Well, everybody there is kind of a buyer, right? But here they are. They're right in my hands. And the retail chain was a name that you would know, probably, right? And I'm like, well, that's kind of a big deal to quote Ron Burgundy, right? And so I was like, hey, Josh, like, come here. Hey, take this picture. Yeah. Hey, guess what, Josh? They're buyers for, XYZ retail. And they just came down to get a picture. But you know what? Don't you sell this soap stuff right here to people like them? Well, yeah. Well, they're looking. Yeah, you buy stuff like this? Look at this. I'm like, that's exactly what we're looking for. Boom. An hour or so, he's talking to these two people, right? And then they left, and he goes, hey, that sounds pretty good. They're going to send another guy by. And like, sure they are, right? Maybe. The guy came, right? So the third guy, and I don't know exactly what the positions of these people, but the third guy actually came and found us and had another meeting with him for an hour. And then he came and goes, oh my gosh, this is looking great. This is looking great. They're all going to come back tomorrow for another meeting all together. And I'm still kind of like, yeah, sure, because sometimes people do. They came back. They were hours over here. I was just taking pictures and scanning badges because I really couldn't. I had nobody else no other salesperson, right? We also have to talk about how many people you're going to bring to the show if you bring me, right? Because I can keep your people full. And if something has happened and somebody's not full, I can get somebody immediately and put them with you. They may not be the best opportunity, but they're an opportunity, and that's for you to decide, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, and that depends on how good your salespeople are too, honestly, or whatever, because a lot of these people probably at a lot of these shows, a lot of these people can use you. They just don't know it, or that's not what they're looking for right now, but they might have a connection in the company or something else where they work, where you can make some headway. So anyway, they came back, they had this long meeting. He came back and he comes up to me kind of real slow. And I'm like, so how'd it go? He goes, That looks like it's probably going to be about $20 million over the next 2 years.
Wow.
And I was just like, bingo, shake and bake, baby. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about, you know? And so that there's just a lot of things that I have seen and can do, and that, those are some of the highlights, but all the there really aren't any lowlights,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's just what I do. So,
I'm super intrigued by this because I'm obviously I understand when you show up, you're gonna suck the air out of the room. I love that. I love how basically you can use everybody's budget to your benefit, right? So
right.
it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how much Valvoline spends to bring people in the door, they're gonna come over to Chevron.
Yeah.
I'm curious of is that story was unbelievable because obviously you could do a lot with nothing. What would an ideal setup be before somebody ever called you in? Like you said, salespeople, the booth. Like, what are some of those high level strategies that really,
Yeah.
perfect world, would be checked off before they ever called you?
Well, that's the thing. I would prefer them call me before they start checking stuff off,
Okay,
honestly. You
cool.
know
So
what I
how would
mean?
you walk through it? Like,
Yeah, because there's a whole string of things. I'm not sure how much time we got, but you have a number of people you're planning on bringing, and that may or may not be the right number. You have the size of booth that you're planning, and that may or may not be the right size. Yeah, this the position you find yourself in. If you find yourself in a smaller booth with more people, but at a good intersection in the show, right? And then you have somebody like me, you can outperform any booth. You can outperform any booth. I promise you that. So it really does depend. I sort of jokingly tell people a 10 by 10 with one logo and a backdrop and a good product and a couple of good salespeople, we'll win the game. There will be, if there's awards at that show, experiential marketing of the show, we will be the guy.
yeah,
They'll put us there. But yeah, so I jokingly tell people, and it's not completely wrong, that all you need is a 10 by 10, a decent product, a decent closer, and me, right? And then some people don't do that. They've got this booth that they need to use because they spent 50 grand on it, 3 years ago, and this is what people are expecting to see and whatever. And if you're just going to a show to plan on meeting the people that you already have as salespeople, I mean, clients, right? That's the wrong thing. This is not necessarily about seeing your clients. You need to get on the airplane, go see them, right? Splurge, do your thing. That's not a trade show. That's not what trade shows are for. Trade shows are for digging in and marketing and pulling new people in. That's my take on it anyway. I know a lot of people, hey, we're going to be at the show. Yeah, you're going to be at the show. Good. We'll meet up when we're there. Totally fine, but that's an after hours kind of thing, right? It should be go buy them a steak, go buy them a lobster, take them out on the boat, whatever, that kind of stuff, right? But at the show, we're prospecting, we're digging deep, we're finding the new clients, we're getting somebody who comes in there and they're kind of in the business, but they're like, I don't really know how to push it to the next level. I don't really know what software I need to do this or what product I need to get there. That's what trade shows are for, right? And so that's why when I look at it, I don't know if you've seen these shows, and I don't watch them all the time, but there's a guy, he has a gold show, some kind of, I don't know, History Channel. He's out there with a backhoe and he's digging up the side of a mountain, right? And that's gold. He's looking for gold, right? But what he's digging is dirt, right? He's digging 500 tons of dirt, but he comes up with an ounce of gold, right? In the analogy, I don't want to say that all the people at trade shows are dirt, so don't go there. But the analogy is that we have all these people that are walking by all the time, and you can't tell with your eye who's going to be your client. So you can't start the conversation as easily as I can. But I can start the conversation. What are you doing at the show? Oh, my mom gave me a ticket. She's doing something, whatever. Okay, good. Here, take a picture. Woo, shake a bake. See you later.
yeah,
Boom. Okay, so it's 5 seconds. All right, so 5 seconds per person. Boom, 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 boom. We're shoveling the dirt, and all of a sudden somebody says, yeah, well, I've been thinking about getting some software like this or whatever, right?
yeah.
Okay. That's your ounce of gold. That's all you need at the end of the day is a new client or, 100 of them, you
Yeah,
know.
sure. Man, that makes so much sense. My partner and I at Pest World last year, we got really lucky. I mean, unbelievably lucky that we we were kind of late to the party, and so we got put on kind of the facing a wall, right?
Yeah, right.
And we had no idea that what was going to happen is when they opened up the doors, that they were only opening our doors. So it was almost like a movie where like all these crowds came in. So I mean, it couldn't have worked better.
Wow, yeah.
Where I say that we got lucky is because we would at any given point have 20 or 30 people standing at our booth waiting to talk, and we had four people there to kind of handle that, five at sometimes. But there would still be such a crowd that they would say, "Oh, we'll come back," knowing that they're not going to come back, right?
Hmm.
Fortunately, through that, we were able to grab the largest company, or I guess the second largest company in our space, who was one of those. Is like, oh my God, like they own everything. How did
Yeah.
of all the people that were standing here, how did we grab you by chance? And if we wouldn't have done that, the whole show, I don't want to say the whole show would have been a bust, but it wouldn't have turned out as well as it had. We wouldn't have been as
Yeah.
excited. We wouldn't have already booked our booth for the next year, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was pure luck as to where I see with you being there, it's way more methodical. It's
Hmm.
like you're saying, you can kind of filter through some of those people that were just there to hang out. And I think that man, I think that what you're saying makes so much sense from what we've seen because, you know, we've got companies that do come in and they spend the big bucks, right? Especially
Yeah.
software. That's like number one.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this year we've backed our booth up next to the biggest player in the game so that they book tons and tons of space. Cool. We've got our small booth right next door.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
use up your space and all that, you know. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to do that, but you know, I think it always comes down to we talked about it multiple times. How much did we miss? What did we lose because him and I were talking and
Hmm.
couldn't get to somebody fast enough? And so I
Yeah.
really I love what you do. Let me kind of bring this home because I don't want to keep you
Okay.
forever and we're past time. What is one action that anybody watching this, whether they're watching live or in our class vaults, what's one action that they could take away from this masterclass to make their next trade show better, aside from just calling you, because that seems like the obvious one. So
Well, yeah.
what is one
Right.
other way that they could
Yeah.
they could make it better overall based on all of your experience?
Well, get out there early. Get out there early so you get a chance at having a good spot, right? Just like you said, you got to be now you're next to this guy, right?
Yeah.
And if you're the last guy signing up, oh, because you're unsure about it, you're guaranteeing that you're going to be in a bad spot, and you want to really get to where you can be in. I guess there's really two things: at a decent location at an intersection. So if you can splurge for the corner, that would be great. Make sure you think through this booth, this trade show, and see if some of the aisles are wider. Then that might be where most of the traffic is, that kind of thing. And so that gives you some visibility at least, right? Now the next thing is at well, I don't know what the last show, a few shows ago, there were some guys across the way, and I decided to tell them early on, like, watch me work, guys, because they were just kind of standing around. And quite frankly, this is kind of all rolled into one thing. What your people are doing. Your people at the show, plan on it. You're not going out and getting drunk all night. This is not a company vacation, right? You're not showing up late. I've been to these shows till noon before any of my actual people showed up because, oh gosh, you should have seen last night. I don't give a shit about what you did last night, and you shouldn't either. You should be in bed early. You should be up early. You should be working the deal. This is now. This is your job. This is your career. This is the business, right? So be there early. Do some networking, that kind of stuff. But on top of that, so you get the good location, and then you get enough people. And then I told these guys, I said, look, just watch me work, okay? You're right across from me, so typically people are not going to see you. Peel off a few people that are kind of crowding in. Turn on the personality, right? Even if it's fake, just look at their badge. If you see their badge, so many times they're flipped around. It's so dumb the way they,
Yeah.
you need a trade show badge with two things so your name stays out forward, right?
Yeah.
But call them by name. Say, what are you doing at the show? That's all you got to do. Just be nice, start a conversation, be happy, but it's sort of aggressive. right?
Yeah.
But say something off topic. Don't talk about, hey, have you tried our software yet? Hey, have you bought the banana for, whatever? No. Just say, man, hey, what's going on? Where are you guys out of? Something just casual. Just start as casual as you can and kind of get a conversation started. And these guys really, they got a lot more aggressive. And I don't mean aggressive in a negative way. I just mean they did what they did. They broke out of their little booth. They kind of expanded their footprint a little bit, and they were talking to people and stuff. And I was kind of proud of them. I mean, it's just they had a good show, I think, because of seeing what I did. They sort of adapted some of the principles. So, I mean, that's what you want to do. You want a decent location, and then you want to bring enough people that know this is a job, that they know this is the business. I'm here to get new clients. I'm not here to go out drinking all night and see the latest whatever. This is what I'm doing here. So serious people, and then bring the personality, kind of start a conversation. Here's something about right on that point is I'll make a joke. You don't have to make a joke, but you say something about the person or about their jacket, not the person necessarily, but their jacket or their bag that they're carrying. What kind of swag did you get in that bag, man? You got that thing full, right?
Yeah.
So, and if they're doing that, they're probably just picking up swag, and they're probably not concerned about doing their job either,
Sure.
right? But there's all kinds of things that you can just pop out of your head, and at a show like this, it gets to be the same thing. You get 3 or 4 things, they'd be the same thing. It's a new person, it's not going to matter. So you develop those few things that will start a conversation or at least stop somebody for a second. So that's what you want to do. You want to be serious, personality, and a decent location.
I love that. Okay. So to wrap this up, please tell people how they could get in touch with you, your different sites. I know my partner and I will be talking to you, see if we can figure something out. He's on the call now, so he's like, wait, we didn't talk about this yet. But I know after this conversation, he's like, yeah, let's have this conversation.
Honestly, you should.
Yeah,
Everybody here should, and anybody watching in the future, all you got to do is try it one time. I'm not that expensive, but it can blow your mind and blow your show wide open. It's like magic. You don't understand it really until you see it. But the people that see it, they typically book, right? So you can find me at a lot of places. The new one is tradeshowmarketingconsultant.com, and that's sort of not necessarily in character sort of trade show advice and consulting, right? So you can't really hire a guy to be the guy. My boss is a little too serious for that, but you still might want to look at some stuff and get some advice about what you're going to do with your show. That's tradeshowmarketingconsultant.com. And then the character driven sites are rickybobbyimpersonator.com. And then there's ronburgundyimpersonator.com. And actually there's buddytheelfimpersonator.com, which I don't really do for trade shows very much, but let me tell you, I was at the AI conference at Javits Center in New York City as Buddy the Elf, and they loved it. And those people, they've gone different ways in different companies and stuff, and now some of the other companies that they're in are booking me because they had me at that show, right? And so it's even the people in the company, they get a new job at somewhere else. They'll hey, you were with me, I was with you, and we need you at this show. So usually a lot of West Coast and Western states pick Ron Burgundy. I'm in San Diego all the time, right? And then Ricky Bobby is fantastic for any show or even a conference where it's like racing to the future and this kind of stuff. I do conference appearances as well, interview the C-suite on the stage, get involved in the introductions and different things in the training, seminars and all this kind of stuff. And trade shows, as well. But so it's pretty much ronburgundyimpersonator.com, rickybobbyimpersonator.com, and buddytheelfimpersonator.com. I'm also on Cameo as all those characters, so I do that as well. So if you just need a video for your grandma or whatever for her birthday, whatever.
Now the wheels are spinning. We got
yeah, right.
I love it. Okay, awesome. Well, I could probably talk to you all day. I would love to have you back sometime and talk even deeper about this, but I will let you go because I know you got a lot going on.
You
To
bet.
everybody that's here, if you want to talk more about trade shows, if you want to talk about anything that we covered in this video and you're in the class vaults, just feel free to use the comment section down below or bring this conversation into our mastermind where I would love to talk to you more about trade shows, answer any questions that I can, and will absolutely direct you back over to David for anything that is outside of my reach. Obviously, our goal here is to bring great people, great advice together so that we all know how to stay ahead of the curve. When it comes to trade shows, it is a jungle, and they are, if you've never really done them and ever had success at one, they are tough. And so this is a very important topic. They're tough to get right. They're easy to show up to. They're tough to get right, as you kind of alluded to. So it's an important topic for virtually everyone that's on here. I'm a big believer that everyone should go to those. It's one of the first things that I ever did. I was 16 years old sitting at a trade show and
Wow.
selling buildings. So they're a fantastic way to meet people. And if you do it right, like I'm assuming, you absolutely do every time that, I think they could change your business. I think it could take you to a different stratosphere completely. So, again, I appreciate you being on. Thank you for spending just a little bit of your time with us. I know that you have much better weather down there in Florida than most of our people that are on right now. I can't say much. I'm hiding from it over here on this coast. But yeah, that's it for today, everybody. If you have any questions, like I said, please bring them in. Next week, we will be going over more in depth with branding. We won't necessarily jump into trade shows, but if you have questions about this, we could always circle back around. So just bring them to us, and we will do everything we can to help you stay ahead of the curve and help you sell more stuff. But that's it for today. So, everybody, have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon. Bye
You
bye.
stay classy.